Hello again, and welcome to our fourth in the series on geometry in the Bible. We're still looking at the canon of biblical numbers and their origin, this time with an emphasis on measures of time. There's a number of time measures given in the Bible, and every day we use different time measures, so we ought to get an idea of what those things are referring to and what they mean. It may never have occurred to you, but a measure of time is also a measure of distance. In fact, if there weren't things in the heavens that move, we would have no concept of a measure of time at all. Earlier, when we were looking at the shapes, we saw that a circle was divided into 360 degrees and divided into 60 minutes and 60 seconds. That's the origin of our clock face. And please notice the significance of the number 12 in measuring time. We have 12 hours on a clock face. There are 12 months in the year, 12 tribes of Israel, and 12 signs in the zodiac. And just like the zodiac, from each of these numbers, from 12 to 1, from 1 to 2, is 30 degrees of our 360-degree circle of time. And like I said, time is not as abstract as it may seem. It is a measure of a motion of the Earth, or maybe I should say a perceived motion of the Earth from our perspective being on the surface of Earth. There are 24 hours in a day. That comes to 1,440 minutes in a day. We've been looking out for 144 this whole time, and here it appears again. That gives us 86,400 seconds in a day. You're probably getting tired of me saying it, but that is one of the most important numbers we will see is 864, so please make a note of that. There are 12 months in a year, 30 days in a month, and 43,200 minutes in a month. Once again, notice that 432 is half of 864. And here's where we will begin to get into controversy regarding calendars, because our modern day modified Gregorian calendar that we use is not the calendar of the Bible. I plan to have a presentation on the Bible's calendar at the end of this, so you can get a better idea of what I'm talking about. But you've probably heard ministers go over the 3.5 times in Revelation and Daniel. That is 1,260 days, which is 42 months, taken as a 30-day month. So in prophecy, there are 30 days in a month. And also, if you very carefully read the story of Noah in Genesis chapters 6 through 8, you'll notice that his months only had 30 days in a month as well. This agrees nicely with what we've already talked about, our circle being 360 degrees, 30 degrees of each sign of the zodiac corresponding to 1 degree per day in the 360-day year. Now don't throw up your hands and say I'm crazy, 360 days in a year. I know full well that there are 365.24219 days in a tropical year. But once again, if you carefully read that story of Noah, his years only had 360 days. So something in or after the deluge modified this in a significant way, and there are a number of ancient cultures that kept a civil calendar of 365 days and a religious calendar of 360 days in a year. There's no end of ingenious stories among the ancient cultures about how those 5 extra days got added. You can look into the Egyptian myth that their god of time, and wisdom as well, Tehot, gambled with the sun for 1/72nd of its light. Well, 360 days divided by 72 gives 5, and that's where some of the Egyptian gods were birthed by their moon goddess in those 5 days. That gives us 8,640 hours in a year. Now, we're looking out for this 864 number. What a coincidence that we see it in seconds in a day and hours in a year. Time from Passover, or I should say day after the Sabbath after Passover, to Pentecost is 50 days, which is 4,320,000 seconds. So we are already encountering 864 and half of it 432 all over the place in measures of time. What could this mean? If you want to think of it, it's from Jesus' death to his ascension into heaven was 4,320,000 seconds. Just to get you ready for our next presentation, I'll tell you that Earth has a third motion, which I was never taught about in school, but it is very significant and contains these same numbers in it. We'll discuss that in our next presentation. All the way back in chapter 1, and God said, "Let there be lights in the firmament of heaven to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs, and for seasons, and for days and years." So all the way back in the 14th verse of the Bible, days, years, the calendar, seasons were already an important subject, but those lights in the firmament of heaven are for signs. Well, what does a sign do? It communicates information using a picture. If you want to go a bit deeper, signs tell you what's the right way to go. Or maybe before you enter a building, you see a sign that says how you're to act in this building. No shirt, no shoes, no service, no dogs, no smoking. Signs give instructions. The 19th Psalm. The heavens declare the glory of God, and the firmament showeth his handiwork. Day unto day uttereth speech, and night unto night showeth knowledge. There is no speech nor language where their voice is not heard. Their line is gone out through all the earth, and their words to the end of the world. In them hath he set a tabernacle for the sun. So something about these things we see in the night sky show knowledge, and they are universally understandable. Psalm 147, He telleth the number of the stars, he calleth them by their names. Great is our Lord, and of great power. His understanding is infinite. But to Isaiah he says, Lift up your eyes on high, and behold who hath created these things, that bringeth out their host by number. He calleth them all by names, by the greatness of his might, for he is strong in power, not one of them faileth. I want to use these two verses to bring out the idea that the pictures and ideas we see in the night sky are not some invention of man, but originated with God himself. And God challenges Abram by saying, Look now toward heaven, and tell the stars if thou be able to number them. And he said unto him, So shall thy seed be. Our 12 months, and notice the Bible gives 12 months to us. For the final chapter of the Bible, in the midst of the street of it, and on either side of the river, there was the tree of life, which bare 12 manner of fruits, and yielded her fruit every month. This gives no room for the lunar calendar people who have a year of 336 days or 354 days, or intercalate a 13th month every set number of years. No, the Bible's very clear there are 12 manners of fruits for every month. Each of our months is associated with a fixed constellation of the zodiac. And notice the Israelitish signs in the zodiac: the lion, the man, the ox, and the eagle. They're in the cardinal directions here. Leo is the lion, Aquarius is the man, the ox is Taurus, but on the other side of Taurus, what is that? That is a scorpion. But if you look in the night sky up at Scorpio, you'll see where I am in the northern hemisphere, just above it, is the constellation Aquila, which in Latin means the eagle. The eagle and Scorpio are close enough that they're associated with each other, but the reason Scorpio is not taken as the eagle is because Scorpio is sort of a villain in the story of the zodiac. It's apparent that when Scorpio sets, Orion, the hero, rises, and coming back around in 12 hours, when Orion is falling, Scorpio is rising. So in more superstitious stories, the Scorpion is the bad guy who defeats Orion, and then Orion comes back. So to associate that sign with a more heavenly creature, we often say the eagle. The origin of these pictures in the constellations is prehistoric as far as I can tell, and sure enough there are disagreements in some zodiacs on some of the signs, but for the most part this is the zodiac that our ancestors were looking at 4,000, 6,000 years ago. Persian and Arabic tradition say that this was Adam, Seth, and Enoch's doing. You can read in Josephus that he blames Adam and Seth for it. The Babylonians apparently gave credit to Enoch, but I think Adam himself was taught the names of these signs. And looking at just these 12 pictures here, not to mention the 36 other constellations we have, there are so much in the way of Bible symbolism in our night sky. It's a shame that we're not more educated on it. The tribal symbols, for instance. Israel says to Reuben, Thou art my firstborn, my might, the beginning of my strength, the excellence of dignity, and the excellency of power. That's often attributed to primitive man. Of Judah, he says, Judah is a lion's whelp. From the prey, my son, thou art gone up. He stooped down, he crouched as a lion, and as an old lion, who shall rouse him up? The rampant lion you commonly see on heraldries. Of Dan, he says, Dan shall judge his people as one of the tribes of Israel, and that is no surprise. The Hebrew word Dan means to judge. So we have the scales here. Dan has a number of symbols associated with him, such as the riderless horse, the serpent, the scales of judgment, and chiefly the eagle. But this is one of our constellations in Libra, the scales of justice. And Moses says of Joseph, his glory is like the firstling of his bullock, and his horns are like the horns of unicorns. There is a map of the constellation Taurus, meaning the bull. Now the four living creatures of Ezekiel and Revelation should be coming more clear. Ezekiel chapter 1. I was among the captives by the river Kebar, and I saw that heavens were opened, and I saw visions of God. As for the likeness of their faces, they four had the face of a man, the face of a lion on the right side, and they four had the face of an ox on the left side. They four also had the face of an eagle. So the heavens were opened. We are looking up into the sky, and what do we see in the sky, in the night sky? The stars have a man, a lion, an ox, and an eagle. Same in Revelation. After this I looked, and behold, a door was opened in heaven. We are still looking up at the night sky, and before the throne there was a sea of glass like unto crystal, and in the midst of the throne, and round about the throne, were four beasts full of eyes before and behind. And the first beast was like a lion, and the second beast like a calf, and the third beast had the face as a man, and the fourth beast was like a flying eagle. You can read in Numbers 2 about the formation of the tribes around the tabernacle in Israel's journeying through the wilderness. Or maybe I should say the encampment in the wilderness. When they journeyed, they were not in this configuration. But you see Dan there to the north, under the emblem of the eagle, Reuben to the south, the man, Judah to the east, the lion, and Ephraim to the west, which is the bull. This image is ripe with symbolism. You've probably read that the tabernacle and Solomon's temple opened to the east. The east is associated with Judah, which is the origin of the Messiah, coming with the rising sun. And if you look at the totals on east and west there, we see that the camp of Ephraim begins with 108, and the camp of Judah with 1864. Now I understand that there is a 1 in front of that, but we still have 864 behind it, and 1864 is also a number we're going to look into, especially when we start looking at the solar system. This number will come up again. Joseph's children, if you take Ephraim and Manasseh together, start with a 7-2, and Leah's children, I found quite interesting, is 314500, which is a pretty good approximation of pi. If you were constructing something circular, you could use that number as pi. Some of the ancients used 22 divided by 7 as an approximation of pi. And the speed of light is around, or commonly averaged to anyway, 186,000 miles per second. I wonder if you got more fine with that measurement, if it wouldn't become 1864. I don't know of any place you can find this in the Bible, but traditionally the four gospel evangelists are also given these symbols. There we see Mark sat on top of the lion, and Matthew being instructed by the angel. Luke is sitting atop, or in front of, an ox, and John is looking up towards the heavens with the eagle above him. I don't recall where I found this middle image, but it appears to be a wall decoration of the four evangelists and their symbols. And perhaps more famously, the cover page to the New Testament in the 1611 King James Bible. It has the four evangelists in the corners, along with the 12 tribes of Israel on the left hand and the 12 apostles on the right hand. This page, I assume, was originally a woodcut, and it is full of amazing Bible symbols. Often speculated on, but never to my satisfaction, was this verse. The appearance of their wheels and their work was like unto the color of beryl, and they four had one likeness, and their appearance and their work was as it were a wheel in the middle of a wheel. Wheels within wheels. What is Ezekiel talking about? I don't want to come to any conclusions at this point, but I will show you some natural phenomenon of wheels within wheels to kind of stimulate your imagination on maybe thinking outside of the box of what this could mean. And I'll remind you of what we read in Proverbs, that God set his compass on the face of the depth, and a compass works by spinning. You revolve the writing part around a central point. That is an approximation of our solar system. None of our planets go in a perfect circle. They are all ellipses with varying eccentricities, but wheels within wheels. Not only do these bodies orbit the sun, but the bodies themselves spin, and they have many satellites that orbit them and also spin. Electron shells on atoms. There's a further breakdown of how electrons can stack up in an electron shell. And once again, a compass works in this same way. The Lord possessed me in the beginning of his way, before his works of old. I was set up for everlasting. From the beginning, or ever the earth was, before the mountains were settled, before the hills I was brought forth, while as yet he had not made the earth, nor the fields, nor the highest part of the dust of the world. When he prepared the heavens, I was there, when he set a compass upon the face of the depth. So there's a lot of things in my mind that wheels within wheels could mean, but I would suggest that the answer is in here. I include the electron shells of atoms because it looks in two dimensions so similar to the planet's orbit around the sun, and that's not the greatest picture of this thing, wheels within wheels. Our sun is in the Orion arm of the Milky Way galaxy, which itself is spinning. Can you think of any examples where time is measured in fours? The year is divided into 4 seasons: spring, summer, autumn, and winter. Each contains 3 of the 12 months. We're tilted more directly towards the sun in the summer, and we're tilted away from the sun in the winter. It goes without saying that this cycle allows life on Earth to thrive. The spring and the autumn begin with equinoxes, and that's Latin for equal nights. The summer and winter begin with solstices, still suns. The word sol in there is the same as our sun. But time is often divided into quarters. The moon has 4 phases, primary phases, I should say, and there are 4 parts of the day: midnight, dawn, noon, and dusk. Each season contains 90 days, which is 2,160 hours. There's our old friend 216 popping up again, which is 129,600 minutes, or 7,776,000 seconds, which is about 13 weeks. So here's how our solstices work. It's kind of funny. In the northern hemisphere, in summer, it gets so hot, but the Earth is actually further away from the sun in the summer than it is in the winter. The summer solstice is the longest day, and the winter solstice is the longest night. So twice a year on the equinoxes, there's an equal amount of daytime and nighttime. That gives us 43,200 seconds of day and 43,200 seconds of night. I found that number 7776 to be quite interesting, so I played around with it in the calculator. Turns out that 2,160 by 3.6 is 7,776. Or if you wanted to think of it, 216 by 36 gives you the same. That is very close to our number 7,920. In fact, it's 144 away. Well, I do hope you've enjoyed my breakdown of our measures of time that we use in our day-to-day, and I hope I've given you some things to think about, especially in regards to the night sky and those cardinal constellations. The symbols of them appear all over the Bible. And I have some good news. The next presentation will be the end of the introduction. We'll be wrapping up the canon of biblical numbers by looking at the geometry of our solar system, which I hope this presentation served as a primer to. Please think on these things and read those passages in your Bible, and God willing, I'll see you then.